She was fired over fabric. But they didn't know the threads they pulled were stitched into a $50 million federal contract. Now the quiet woman they underestimated is the only one who can unravel their empire. Or rebuild it without them. The email hit the company inboxes at exactly 7:03 a.m., a timestamp so precise it felt surgical. The subject line sparkled. "Let's look our best, team." Tiffany Hastings' signature flair, emojis included. But Sarah Givens wasn't amused. She was still standing at the tiny breakroom microwave, waiting for her crusty egg white frittata to finish its soggy pirouette on the rotating glass plate. It was a rainy Monday, drizzling in that clingy, miserable way Boston did best. And Sarah, 34, federal compliance analyst and quietly feared organizational backbone, was already tired before her first sip of black coffee. By 7:06, she was at her desk in the corner cubicle near the flickering fluorescent light, one that made every video call look like a hostage situation. She read the email twice. Once, as an employee. Once, as a strategist. The revised dress code, update section 14B, of the HR handbook wasn't about professionalism. It was about control. And Sarah knew exactly who the message was aimed at. She stared down at her tailored slate gray wool trousers, mid-rise with a subtle herringbone weave so fine it whispered rather than spoke. Custom ordered. Impeccably hemmed. Not flashy, just deliberate. They weren't against policy. They weren't even controversial. But they stood out. In an office, full of ill-fitted khakis and sad Amazon pencil skirts, Sarah looked like she gave a damn. And that made her a problem. Tiffany Hastings, 31, HR manager with an MBA in weaponized condescension, had it out for Sarah ever since she discovered they were making nearly the same salary. Tiffany, who equated leadership with micromanagement and feminism with pastel binders, had never recovered from that discovery. It rattled her. And rattled people get reckless. By 9 o'clock, the floor was buzzing with soft murmurs. Brenda, Tiffany's clipboard-toting lackey, made a round through the cubicles. She stopped by Sarah's desk, smiling like someone trying to sell a haunted house. "Morning, Sarah," she said with a lilt too chipper to be genuine. "Interesting pants." Classic, like old-school FBI vibes. The jab was light, but the echo of past mockery made it sting. Sarah didn't blink. She never did. That was her power, stillness, where others ranted or rolled their eyes. Sarah simply kept working, filing classified documents, verifying encrypted codes, cross-checking defense contracts for compliance. The invisible labor that held together a $50 million government contract. Work that no one else wanted to do because no one else could do it, and she did it better than anyone. No one in that office even knew what CUI stood for, let alone how to properly encrypt and classify it. Sarah had spent nearly a year earning her embedded black-level security clearance interviews, audits, even a home inspection. 2 men in government-tissued trench coats had poked around her apartment and asked questions about router resets. The badge, slim, matte black, and embedded, with a chip that didn't beep so much as hum with silent authority, it stayed hidden inside a reinforced leather sleeve in her purse, nestled beside a bag of almonds and a spare phone charger. Because real power doesn't announce itself, it waits. At 10:17 a.m., Tiffany made her entrance, heels clicking the perfume. Clouds suffocated. The dramatic U-turn into Sarah's cubicle wasn't subtle. "Oh hey, Sarah," she cooed, drawing out the syllables like taffy. "Just wanted to check in. Did you get a chance to review the updated attire policy?" Sarah didn't look up. "I did. Nothing in there applies to me." Right on cue, Brenda appeared. "It's just we're aiming for a unified aesthetic," she chirped. "And some of the older styles can send mixed messages." Sarah slowly raised her gaze. Mixed messages to whom? The Pentagon. Tiffany's smirk faltered for half a second. Brenda flinched. "We just want to make sure we're all on the same page." Tiffany tried again. "Some people don't always realize when they're towing the line." "I don't tow lines," Sarah said. "I write them." Section 16A of the Federal Compliance Brief trumps any HR memo. But I'm sure you already knew that. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. Just surgical. Tiffany's smile shriveled at the edges. She didn't respond. She simply turned, heels stabbing the floor, and walked away. Sarah returned to her work. But something inside her had shifted. The rest of the day unfolded, like an unraveling thread. Mark, her direct supervisor, passed by her cubicle during the confrontation and did exactly what Sarah expected. Absolutely nothing. No nod. No shrug. just vanished into the stairwell like a spineless illusion. Later, at the coffee machine, Tiffany returned. "Oh wow," she said loudly enough for Brenda to hear from across the office. "Those pants are interesting." Sarah blinked. "I wasn't sure if you got the memo about textile conformity, Section 14B, Tiffany said sweetly. "You did read the handbook, right? I edited the handbook. 3 typos, by the way." Brenda popped in behind her like a glitch in the Matrix. "It's about cohesion," she chirped again. "Team synergy starts with fabric integrity." "Is this a formal HR complaint?" Sarah asked. "No," Tiffany said, voice still syrupy. "Just a conversation. Peer-to-peer, woman-to-woman." "Good, because my contract doesn't include conversations based on personal taste masquerading as policy." At 3:12 p.m., the next volley came. An email. Subject: HR matter immediate, attention required, no body text. Just a calendar invite. Room 3C. 15-minute window. Sarah stared at it. Her cursor hovered. Her face didn't change, but her hand moved to her drawer to the notebook labeled lines crossed. She flipped to the back. Added a new entry. Textile war, and she stood. Not fast. Not theatrical. Just ready. Room 3C was a glorified storage closet dressed up as a conference room, windowless, airless, and just humid enough to ruin a blowout. The flickering LED light above cast everything in interrogation gray. Sarah stepped inside precisely at 3:27 p.m., 3 minutes before the scheduled meeting. She wasn't early. She was tactical. Tiffany Hastings sat at the head of the table, legs crossed like a TED Talk host who majored in executive presence. To her right, of course, was Brenda, clipboard ready, face set in an expression of bureaucratic mourning, but to the left, surprisingly, sat Cal Morton, senior operations manager. His presence was unsettling. He wasn't HR. He was high enough to know when something serious was brewing, but rarely got involved unless something had already exploded. "Sarah," Tiffany said, her voice draped in faux warmth. "Thank you for joining us." "I was ordered to," Sarah replied, taking a seat with deliberate calm. Her hands rested neatly on the table, fingers interlaced. Her gaze was level, detached. The eye of the storm. Brenda began reading from a prepared script. "This is a formal termination meeting conducted by Section 8B of the Employee Accountability Guidelines." Sarah blinked. Just once. But internally, her muscles were coiling. "Tiffany took over. Due to repeated non-compliance with our updated dress code policy and a demonstrated pattern of insubordination when addressed about it, the company has no choice but to terminate your employment, effective immediately." Brenda handed over a document stamped "Final Notice" in bold red letters. Sarah scanned it. Her name, her ID, the words "pattern of defiance" circled in red ink. No mention of her security clearance. No reference to her spotless work. Just fluffy phrases like cultural tone setting and synergy disruption. She spoke evenly. "Just to be clear, I'm being fired for pants." Tiffany's mouth curled. For repeated defiance regarding dress code policy and interpersonal behavior that could be interpreted as hostile to leadership. Sarah gave a humorless chuckle. "You mean the pants?" Tiffany leaned forward. "Let's not make this harder than it has to be." "No," Sarah replied. "You did that already. When you turned woven wool into a felony." Behind her locked terminal, still visible through the frosted glass, a small alert pinged. "DSS system check-in is overdue." No one else noticed, but Sarah did. Tiffany, seeing Sarah's eyes flicker, scoffed. "Guess you won't be needing that anymore." Sarah said nothing. She stood, calm as ice. "Wouldn't want to cause a security breach." Tiffany chuckled. "Don't be dramatic." Sarah looked over her shoulder. "You just fired the only person in this building who knows how to keep your government contract from collapsing like a Dollar Tree lawn chair." Their faces didn't change immediately, but the words hung. Sarah walked back to her cubicle, past the slack-faced interns, past Mark, who gave her a half-hearted apology, hands in his pockets, spine nowhere in sight. She packed slowly. A photo, with her sister, her cactus, a legal pad, everything except the badge. That stayed out, gleaming, dangerous. By the time she reached the elevator, her heart was steady. The doors opened. She stepped in, and then the glass lobby doors whooshed open. 2 figures in black suits, matching lapel pins, slim briefcases. Zero hesitation. DSS. Defense Security Service. Not HR. Not pretend authority. Real power. Sarah watched. From the elevator, they approached the receptionist. We need to speak with Walter Phelps, head of security, and Brian Denning, CEO. Immediately. Reception stammered. They're in meetings, it's not a request. Phones rang, legs moved, the suits didn't blink. Sarah stepped out of the elevator slowly. The moment had arrived. She sat in the lobby again. Envelope on her lap, purse to her side. The system had noticed. The badge deactivation had triggered protocol. The government had noticed. This wasn't about pants anymore, it was about a breach. About trust. And trust, once broken, invites consequences. Brian Denning, CEO and self-proclaimed captain of corporate synergy, reached the lobby with his tie askew and panic sweating through his tailored blazer. He froze at the sight of agents Rossi and Miller standing by the reception desk, like statues made of unspoken consequences. Behind them, Sarah remained seated. Calm, silent, watching. Sarah, Brian said, forcing a smile that barely held its shape. Could we speak? Just a quick. She didn't rise. I no longer work here. You'll need to make an appointment. That line, delivered without venom, landed harder than a courtroom verdict. Everyone heard it, the interns leaning from behind cubicles, the marketing assistant faking a phone call, the security guard sipping flat Coke. Brian's face tightened. Please, just a few minutes. She stood slowly, every motion precise. Controlled. Fine, but not in your office. Here. Rossi and Miller exchanged a glance and nodded. They weren't escorting her, they were witnessing. Brian swallowed hard. Tiffany arrived seconds later. Mascara slightly smudged, clipboardless, breathless. Her gaze hit Sarah and instantly bounced off, like it had touched an open flame. Rossi broke the silence. Miss Givens, we'd like to formally discuss the recent breach in federal compliance protocol. We believe you are the only individual with the context and expertise to clarify the sequence of events. Sarah gave a small nod. I'm listening. Agent Miller gestured toward the open area near the ficus. Let's do this here. Everyone in the office went still. Sarah turned slightly toward Brian. You fired me over pants, remember? He tried to speak, couldn't. Agent Rossi opened a folder. At approximately 3:13 p.m., a DSS alert flagged this facility for a security token. This one, she held up a printed replica of Sarah's badge, was deactivated without a proper audit trail or offboarding procedure. It triggered a system-wide review. 6 compliance protocols were breached within 47 minutes. Sarah crossed her arms. Standard HR brilliance. Agent Miller, the shared drive you partitioned. It contained restricted data, redacted content with layered encryption. Attempted access post-termination violates federal statute. Tiffany blinked rapidly. We didn't know, no one told us the files were. Sarah cut in. Because you weren't cleared to know. Brian looked like he had aged 5 years in 30 seconds. We'll fix this. There has to be a clawsome fix. Rossi didn't blink. Your eligibility for the federal contract is now under review. Until cleared, your access to all DSS-related assets is suspended, including personnel. Brian collapsed into the nearest chair. Oh my God. Sarah turned to Tiffany. How's that for fabric integrity? She didn't wait for a response. She simply walked toward the exit, agents flanking her like quiet shadows. Halfway to the door, Agent Miller's phone buzzed. He stopped, glanced at the screen, and turned. Miss Hastings, he called. Tiffany froze. Yes, your credentials have been flagged as the origin point of the breach. Expect formal DSS communication by the end of the day. Silence dropped over the office like a blackout. Curtain. Tiffany sat down. Hard. Sarah didn't look back. They exited the building like a slow procession. Sarah stepped into the afternoon light and took the business card. Agent Rossi handed her no title, no logo, just a name, a direct number, and a small DSS seal. We subcontract oversight roles, Rossi said. Yours just opened. Sarah turned the card over. I assume the pay's better. Better, cleaner, saner. Sarah raised a brow. You work for the government. Rossi smiled. We prefer people who know how to stay quiet, stay sharp, and strike only when needed. Call us next week. She tapped the card twice against Sarah's palm. Sarah stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching the glass doors close behind her. For the last time, inside, a company's illusion of power was folding in on itself. Outside, something else had just begun.